there is a great reason to have you onto the program to talk about Mythos in the cybersecurity context. Because what HackerOne does, it's the biggest offer of bug bounties, right? Mm-hmm. You pair companies of all sorts with someone that can identify a vulnerability and then in some cases suggest how to patch it. That's exactly how the banks are supposed to be using Mythos. And I wonder just initially your take on the model and what you know about it.
Well, I think it's very exciting that we are starting to see capabilities where we can, at scale, identify vulnerabilities more quickly and use them in a defensive capability to eliminate that risk. And so this is a very great complement to what we have been doing for decades, which is human-driven vulnerability discovery. Where the bottleneck truly is, though, these days, is no longer really with the vulnerability discovery, but it's much more in the back part of the find to fix cycle. It's how quickly can you validate that those vulnerabilities are truly exploitable, and how quickly can you get them remediated?
Cara, last week I spoke to Mike Krieger, who co-leads Anthropics Labs, and I tried to get him to just be succinct about why Mythos is good in the cybersecurity context. Listen to what he had to say.
You can't isolate a capability. I mean, you probably could, with enough effort, but that's typically, these things kind of emerge. Like the fact that it is very good at solving general purpose coding problems and debugging and doing all the things that you'd want it to do in the ordinary course of practice also makes it really good for cybersecurity. It's really fascinating to actually watch it in practice in a moment like this one where, it's not the revenue optimizing move in the short run, but I think it's absolutely the right one.
If you can't isolate a model's single capability, in this case cyber, why is it so good in that domain?
Well, I think about it as coding and building is one side of a coin and breaking is the other side, and they kind of go hand in hand. And one of the truly big advancements that Mythos has is this ability to chain together exploits and basically turn what could be multiple vulnerabilities into a much more critical or severe issue. And that is fundamentally building and putting something together across a number of building blocks.
Can you, Cara, just push back against perhaps some cynicism that's been building into the market about the power of Mythos? Some saying, look, it benefits Anthropic to make out that it's quite so powerful, and actually it's not doing all that much new than was already out there, or indeed it's just more a compute issue than actual sheer terror as to why they put it into the hands of a small amount of players. Articulate just how powerful this is.
Well, I think the capabilities that are explained in the Mythos release are quite good, and they're definitely an advancement. The frontier is certainly moving. And yes, some of those capabilities can be achieved with other models out there, perhaps through a more complicated workflow. But what we're seeing here is a general advancement in the ability of AI to really play a powerful force in the cybersecurity space. And so I would put less emphasis specifically on this release of Mythos, but really acknowledge that the frontier is moving, and it's moving much more quickly than security teams are able to keep up.
And that frontier is being moved by other players as well. And we know that OpenAI has been trying to work with the cyber community as well. I mean, we had Fortalis join the show last week. And their idea is, look, smaller companies should be able to have access to Mythos, to be able to drive forward this vision to make sure we're safe. Is that something HackerOne wants? Would you like to be on this small amount of groups who are out there testing vulnerabilities?
Well, certainly we would like to have access to this. Now, I recognize the risk equation that Anthropic has taken here in terms of a smaller release to a limited number of organizations. But look at HackerOne, for example. Last week alone, we automatically validated 4,000 vulnerabilities that came in through our various vulnerability discovery programs. And that kind of capability in Mythos that would help us supercharge our validation capabilities would be greatly appreciated.
The access to Mythos is clearly being closely controlled. It seems strange to not bring up the war in Iran and the competence that Iran has as a cyber bad actor. Put two and two together. What is the likelihood that a malicious actor from Iran or elsewhere would have access to that level of technology and pose a threat, therefore?
I'll put it this way, Ed. I think this year in 2026, civilians, businesses, and organizations are markedly less safe than we were just even last year from a cybersecurity perspective. We now have much more capable AI models. Those models are rapidly proliferating, even if Mythos itself is still within limited release. And we now have, a number of sophisticated threat actors that can put those capabilities to use. And we're seeing an increasing number of breaches and supply chain issues across the open source ecosystem and across corporations.